A golem was created in the 16th century by a rabbi in a town where somebody was coming to kill the Jews. All right, so here we are, 16th century, a rabbi sees that his town is being targeted to kill all the Jews. And he thought, well, what can I do? How can I help? He created a mythological character, which is called a golem, out of clay. So he molded the clay and he said a special prayer, very mystical prayer, and the golem came to life. And you see this huge, 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 massive creature that was there to protect the Jews. And he did. This golem did protect the Jews for a long time. But then eventually he went back, he fell in love, so the folklore goes, he fell in love with a Jewish young woman, and, you know, all hell broke loose. And then what happened was they had to have the golem not be a golem anymore. So from my understanding in the storytelling is that a golem was kind of the precursor to Frankenstein, vampires, zombies, all of those things, that these inanimate objects that come to life. I knew the show that I wanted to do was about my dad growing up in Sadieville, Kentucky as a Jew, tons of anti-Semitism, tons of hate, and my dad persevered, and he actually became a champion for people that were unkind to him. So that's where this started. And then I realized there is a story of anti-Semitism constantly. It's under our feet, it's everywhere, it's always. But unless you're Jewish, it's not something you really pay attention to. Uncle Gershon was this flamboyant, loud, obnoxious man that had such a lust for life. I spent a lot of time at my grandma and grandpa's house. And Uncle Gershon would just come in like, you know, like this breath of fresh air, but like loud and obnoxious and all these things. And I was fascinated by him, but I wasn't his favorite by any stretch of the imagination. I was absolutely chopped liver. But I was still fascinated. I'm like, this guy is kind of amazing. We're pretty sure he was part of the Jewish mafia. He had a lot of money, then he didn't have a lot of money. Sometimes he'd come home to my grandma's house and visit, and black eye. We're like, what is going on with Uncle Gershon? I didn't know, but I was like, I kind of think this guy's pretty cool, especially coming from a family of very quiet people. I'm like, I'm Uncle Gershon. I'm like the 2022 version of my Uncle Gershon. I'm kind of loud, I'm in your face, I'm not a gambler, I'm not in a mafia, but I definitely assert myself in a certain way that I think is very attuned to Uncle Gershon. And it felt kind of perfect to talk about family history, a golem protecting Jews, my Uncle Gershon, who felt, although he was wild and crazy, he felt very strong and very protective. And it just felt like the perfect marriage of a beginning of a conversation, Jewish mysticism, Jewish life, and my uncle. And I've been trying to get in this gallery for 10 or 12 years. And my aesthetic didn't fit. You know, it didn't fit into the smartness of the space, into this very avant-garde kind of way, because I'm very down and dirty. I use a hot glue gun, which I'm pretty sure is like anti-artist. And I use color. Color is my safe space. And when I wanted to talk about such an intense subject matter of anti-Semitism, my dad living with hate, my mother, her family immigrating from Russia, like, how do I marry these two parts of who I am? Yes, I want the world to be a better place. And yes, I do believe in humankind. However, I do also see the darkness in humanity. And it was really hard. And actually, I struggled to make this show happen. How do I still stay true to my aesthetic of being loud and obnoxious and colorful and life-affirming, but then talk about this dark subject matter? And I feel that having the funhouse opening where you're actually walking through my Uncle Gershon's mouth into my world, into my life, kind of offset that. So you walk in and you're like, this looks playful, this looks fun, this looks like a place I want to be. And my challenge was to continue that through the show, but educate, inform, yell. There's a place in the show where I talk about Stomp Out Hate. It's a call to action. I have to say I'm very proud of the way it came out. I feel like I was able to keep my joy, my color, my resilience, and my resistance alive, but still tell a very dark, heavy story. I'm going to educate you, I'm going to teach you, but I want you to enjoy the process in learning. So marrying the color, marrying the vibrance, marrying the loud with a very dark story took me a very, how many times can I say very? A lot. But I wanted to very much so marry these two very contrasting conversations. And I'm happy with the outcome. I feel like I was able to do that. I always wanted to show here. I love the space. It's always been this inattainable goal for me because I also know that my art and my voice is incredibly different than the art I've ever seen here. And so throughout the years, I would apply. Dennis and I became friends outside of me applying like 10 times. We meet for a drink, and the first thing I say out of my mouth is, okay, what's your problem? Everybody loves me. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, everybody loves me. Clearly you don't. He goes, no, I love you. I'm like, well, you don't love my artwork because I've applied many times. And what's your problem? And he said, I like your work. I think your work is really strong. I think it's just, I don't think it ever fit in this space. And it took me about 2 years after that, and I applied again. And I got in, and it was during pre-COVID, and I had a show. And at that time, I had this vision of what my show was going to be. And it was based on anti-Semitism. It was based on Czechoslovakian puppeteers during World War II, during the Holocaust, that did anti-Nazi puppet shows when they occupied Prague. And I wanted to tell that story, and that's what I applied for. And that was the first time that I took my art outside of my own reality and my own voice and wanted to tell something larger than me. Meanwhile, lots of things happened in the 20s when I was supposed to have my show. And then I thought, I am not the person to tell that story. It's not my story to tell. And I was going to let go of it. I'm like, I just want to be fun again. I have a show. We're pretty much contract in. I'm not going to tell this heavy stuff. I'm just going to tell like a funny story about myself. And then things happened in the politics of the United States that were uncomfortable to me and I didn't like. And there was a lot of anti-Semitism coming to the surface. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was my opportunity to voice this. I have this incredible gallery. I have this incredible opportunity. I have a voice that people listen to, which is really nice. Mostly it's because I'm full of joy and love, and everybody's like, yay. But I'm like, I need to tell you guys something. I need to tell my friends. I need to tell my community. I need to tell the art community. Like this is happening under your toes and around you all the time, and nobody's doing anything about it. It was my time to say, I've had a lovely career. I've had wonderful opportunities. I'm still speaking my truth, but it's also my opportunity to educate as well. Dennis and I passed each other at the opening, and I said, thank you for making me wait. And he said, we shouldn't have made you wait this long, which was this lovely moment between a gallery director and an artist to say that I know where you are and I know where I was, and somehow this special moment in time happened, and it was meant to happen this way. I feel really great about the fact that I waited and my voice is louder and more passionate, and the craftsmanship is even better because I waited. But I gotta say, I was a little salty. I always say that my art is who I am. It's not just what I do. And when I taught for 30 years at Harrison High School, I would tell my students that. My world was, I'm going to teach art, I'm going to make art along with my students, I'm going to go home and make my own art, and when I'm not making my own art, I'm going to go to a lecture of an artist, or I'm going to go to a workshop of an artist. My world, my life, my being surrounded itself and encased itself with art. When I was first hired in Harrison, I was unusual in that school district. One thing, it's on the west side, and we all know Cincinnati, west side, east side. I was an east side girl. I'm not a flat earther believer, but I did believe that the world ended at 275. And I got hired in Harrison, and I went past that 275 loop at the age of 30. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a whole nother world over here. I love that I was embraced so beautifully in the Harrison community as an artist, as a Jewish person, as an East Sider, and a later in life educator. I totally didn't fit in, but they loved it. They were like, we want your energy, we want you. Like, we're ready for you. And I was ready for them. And it ended up being this incredibly perfect marriage of two very unlikely partners. Like, they totally understood that this person doesn't think the way a normal educator thinks. And if we're gonna honor her ability to teach art in a way that we've not seen before, so we also have to give her a pass. And I feel very honored and very lucky that that's where I spent my career. I was an artist first and then a teacher. And I feel like that really changed the way I taught. I'm like, this is about what's in your soul and your heart and your gut versus this is a test you have to take. And it's no educator's fault that that's the way we have to teach, zero. But I came in a different place. So I felt like from the get-go, this was like the place I was supposed to be, and this was the time I was supposed to be doing this. And I had something to offer. Then later in my career, you can't do both. A lot of times I get asked, like, well, you're a public school teacher and you're an artist. How do you balance that? Well, if somebody can tell me how to balance that, I would like to hear it. There is no balance. There is no balance in self-care and your job and your family and your passion and your gardening and there's no balance. You just have to figure out what takes its turn, you know? So for a long time, teaching took its turn. And I would do like demos. I'd have the kids all stand around me, like these little first graders, so cute. They'd stand around me and they'd just be like in awe. Like anytime you would draw something like, ooh, Miss Kravetz, you're such a good artist. And so they would sit around me and and for a couple years, that was perfect. That's all my heart and my art soul needed, was that love and that ability to translate that to students. Then I saw that at one point, the teacher came to pick their kids up after their special class, art, and the kids never got a chance to do anything because I was working the whole time. And I realized at that point that my creative soul wasn't being nurtured enough. So there was a time where I was doing both. I was making art, I was teaching art, I was making art, I was teaching art, I was making art. And it got like a lot overwhelming. And it ended up that I realized that I can teach art and make art and be in the same space as my students and work alongside them. So they gave me this feeling of acceptance and love that I didn't know I could get in a career at all. And then I also gave them this gift of self. I'm pretty good at a lot of things. I am. Does that sound fancy or does that sound like too egocentric? I think that's okay because I think I am good at a lot of things. I am not good at more things. And I also don't like being alone. I'm a very social person. My art is always influenced by the world around me. And to create the body of work that I get the opportunity to create, I can't do by myself. And I think it started actually when Craig and I were dating, my engineer, amazing husband. I was having a show and I wanted a wall painted lime green. Craig came in and he's like, well, I can help you. And he painted this perfect lime green wall for me to place my art on. And through the years of me making my art, he has been there for me. He's been that other behind the scenes person. Then I would start doing things like, I want to be this really huge eyeball. Well, it would take me 2 months to be by myself. Or I want to paint this incredible installation, but I am not a I am a trained painter, but I'm not like I can't paint realism. Like I've done my own shtick, my own art so long, I can't do realism. I need somebody to help me with that. I love animation, I'm not an animator. I want somebody that does that. So I created this amazing Rolodex of these incredibly gifted humans that I love being around. And I could tell them, I need this, and here's the stuff, just go do it. And they're like, well, I need more direction. I'm like, you don't need any more direction. You got this. And I empowered so many younger artists, so many friends to understand that they got this. And I just pick up all of these like amazing people that just love creating. And I think that we are so busy and we are so under so much pressure constantly. And to come up with a creative thought or to do your own thing is not easy. So when I can come to you and say, oh my gosh, I got this eyeball, it's like 20 feet long, I need 80 million gazillion beads, and I want it all done by hand, can you do it? And at first people are like, no, I can't do that. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I don't like being alone. I like being with people. I'm very, very, very social. I'm happy to show up at a party or to do all those things. So to make art alone doesn't feel like it's who I am. So anytime I talk about my art, I never talk about my art as me alone. I could never do what I do alone. There's a long list of thank yous of people that in my world that help me. And that to me is what makes my art better, louder, stronger, more passionate, better craftsmanship than I could ever do. For me, starting my art at a very young age, kindergarten, which is true, I was very bad at my ABCs and my 1, 2, 3s, and my kindergarten teacher let me use the easel every day because she could see that that's where I felt comfortable. So she gave me the easel. I got to paint every day, and I don't remember what I painted, but I know I got to paint every single day. Then I went to a pretty competitive, academically competitive school. I was already struggling anyway. And I had teachers along the way that realized that there was something about me that was different. And instead of, sending me down the hall, which I did get sent down the hall for reading, because I struggled with reading, but they were great about it. Like, let's help you. And helping me said, you're good at art, you like art, that's what you like to do. Let's make your book report with art. I wanted to be in the choir because all my friends were in the choir and I'm tone deaf. And they let me in the choir because I was nice and funny and playful, and all my friends were in choir. But the choir director asked me to paint a mural on the choir room. And I don't know about y'all, but our choir room was huge. It took me the whole year, pretty much so I wouldn't sing. But I got credit for singing, and I got to paint a mural. And then in high school, I had a really, really, really great high school teacher, Pam Hall. And she saw something in me that she's like, this is like your thing. This is who you are. This is what you do. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Typical high school kid. I'm like, I don't know, whatever. And I was going to go into school for business because that's what you did then in the late 70s. And I got caught cheating off of Steve Strickland. He's very cute. I got caught cheating off of Steve in senior math and sent to the counselor's office. And they're like, what are you doing in senior math? I'm like, I'm going into business. And they're like, well, you're cheating in senior math. Clearly, you're not going to business. This is not going to work for you. They said, didn't you just get a scholarship for art? I'm like, yeah, but what do you do with that? I'm like, I'm going into business, And so they all helped me, like my parents, my family, my counselor, my teachers, all helped me go to college for art. I go to DAA before the P, and the University of Cincinnati, and I was definitely an outlier. I wasn't technically as proficient as many of them. I worked with bright colors, they worked with very dark colors, lots of charcoal. I would fall asleep on the artist couch because I would be out partying the night before. I was not a serious art student. And I was a sorority girl and the college mascot. So here I was, I'm a sorority girl, which I loved. I was the University of Cincinnati Bearcat mascot for 2 years, which I loved, and I was an artist, which I loved. None of those three places did I fit in. I was not a sorority girl, but I loved it. I was not an athlete, but I loved being a mascot. I was an artist, but I didn't fit into that world. I think being all three of those things influenced me as an artist. and as a human. I'm different in the way that I like working with people as a visual artist. A lot of artists like working quietly alone in their studio. I like the performative part of being an artist. I like interacting, the mascot. I love making art. It's not what was accepted when I was in college. I really struggled to kind of make my place in college, but I also knew even then, I'm like, I'm good at this. I'm just not good at it like that. And I think that that's hard for a young artist to realize that we have a voice, we have something to say, we have ability. It's our passion, it's our gut, it's our soul, but maybe it doesn't fit in these things. And I think because I had those other outlets, that I had a very holistic, good feeling about me as an artist, me as a mascot, me as a sorority girl, me as all those things. And so that influenced my art. My art is about the world around me. It is about people I interact with. It's conversations. It's the what ifs. It's, wow, I didn't think of anything like that. Or it's talking to my mom and dad and my aunt about our family history. I am that artist, you know? And I think for many artists, finding our voice is not difficult. Finding our place is more difficult. So you might have a strong voice, you might have a strong passion, you might have tons and tons of talent and ability, but maybe your place isn't ready. And I think that's what happened to me for a very, very, very long time. My story is deeper, my voice is louder, my passion is stronger, my craftsmanship is better than it's ever been. All this time, all of this hard work, all of the sleepless nights, all of the dreams, all the imagination, all of that has come really well to fruition at this point. I've never rested on my laurels. I've never stopped. I've never thought, this is the answer. I have my answer right here, right now. I will never challenge or question anything. That's just not the way I live. But I always say that my art dictates the medium. I'm not an artist that has a medium. I'm an artist that has a story. That whatever I need to use, employ, do, learn, or have a friend or my husband do for me, that's where the art comes, you know? The story has to be told, and I have to figure out the way to tell it and the way I need to tell it. What I've learned about Pam Kravetz through this show is I'm kind of cool. I like me. I'm proud of me. You know, it's like I ventured out in a place where I was not in my comfort zone. And I talked about a subject matter that I wasn't comfortable with. I worked in mediums and in a space that I wasn't mine, you know? And that's something about working at the Weston that has just been brilliant. Like, it's just been this incredible love fest here that I feel that what I needed to say in the way I needed to say it was supported by this community here. And I learned that I can challenge myself and I can surpass my own expectations. Like, I did this. I made a piece of art that I'm incredibly proud of. And I have to say, I am proud of my art. I am. But I took this to a level that I've never done before. And I think, too, as something that a lot of times I speak to younger artists, but I want to speak to older artists as well and say, you can retire or you can do this, but you can continue to challenge yourself and you continue to grow and you continue to make mistakes and not figure stuff out right away. That's okay. Like, that's okay. And I feel like I did all that here, and I'm happy with what I did and what I created and the story I had to tell and the way I told it. So that's what I learned about me. I think people in our city, which has been incredibly supportive of me and my art and my life, see me as a very singular way. And I want them to take away the same thing that I took away from this experience, that I have something to tell and it's important, and I can tell it in a way that is well crafted, and I want them to take away that there's hate in this world and there's evil in this world, and to combat that with hate and evil, maybe is not the right answer. There's so many levels of this body of work in here. But my takeaway is a call to action, that if you see something happening, if you see anti-Semitism, if you see an image, like, speak out about it. You have a voice, you have an audience that you can also share this and say, we can't let this continue. And Pam, who we love, and we bought her art, and it's like now in our house because it's so good. We want to rally around her and her family and her friends and the people around us and say, we're not going to let this kind of hate happen either. And so I think that's the takeaway. I think there's a lot of takeaways. A takeaway I've gotten is new friendships, new people in my life, new people on my Rolodex, new conversations with people that experienced this and said, oh my gosh, my dad's father was in Russia. Or I'm not Jewish, but we had a similar situation in Eastern Europe. Or, I love that. I love when this is the catalyst to a conversation. Or is this a catalyst to you telling your family story? And so my takeaway for a lot of people is just, this is my story, at least the way I remember it or I hear it. Go find your story and understand who you are and where you come from. And I hope I give people that time to question and wonder and think and create or document their own ancestry, I guess. Yep.